The great crystal chamber of Nexus Prime sparkled with light from 1,000 different suns. Representatives from 47 species filled the massive hall, their voices creating a symphony of clicks, hums, whistles, and growls. The quarterly Galactic Council meeting was about to begin. Ambassador Zethkar of the Vorthani adjusted his ceremonial robes and looked around the chamber. His 4 eyes scanned the usual seats, checking off each delegation in his mind. The insectoid Keth in their black armor, the floating jellyfish-like beings of the Synthesis Collective, the rock-skinned granite folk from the heavy worlds. Everyone was here, everyone except the humans. Zethkar frowned. The human delegation always arrived early. They liked to chat with other species before the formal session began. Ambassador Sarah Chen would usually be moving between groups, her warm smile and easy laughter helping to smooth over tensions before they became problems. The ceremonial gong rang out across the chamber. Council Speaker Mordeth, a tall being with blue skin and silver eyes, rose from the central platform. "Welcome, beings of the galaxy," Mordeth's voice echoed through translation devices. "We gather once again to maintain the peace and prosperity that has blessed our worlds for 800 years. The opening ceremonies began as always. Each species representative stood and spoke their traditional words. But when the time came for humanity's turn, their section remained empty. Whispers began to spread through the chamber. The Keth delegation clicked their mandibles in annoyance. The Synthesis Collective's lights flickered with what Zethkar recognized as confusion. "Perhaps the humans are running late," Mordeth said, his voice calm but uncertain. "We shall proceed and return to them later." But as the hours passed, the human delegation never appeared. The other ambassadors began to look worried. Some made jokes about human unpredictability, but Zethkar noticed the forced laughter. When the session ended, Zethkar approached Mordeth. "This is not like them," he said quietly. "Sarah Chen has never missed a council meeting in 12 years. Mordeth nodded slowly. "Send a message to Earth, ask about their status." The response came back within hours, but it made no sense. The message was automated, sent by Earth's communication system. It simply said, "All human diplomatic staff have been recalled. No further information available." Zethkar stared at the message. Recalled? By whom? And why? Over the next 3 days, more reports began to flow in. Trade ships arriving at human colonies found them completely empty. Space stations that had been bustling with activity just days before were now silent and dark, but nothing had been destroyed or damaged. The humans had simply vanished. Captain Velnara of the Synthesis Collective contacted the Council with the strangest report of all. Her ship had arrived at New Geneva, one of humanity's largest colonies. The city was intact, perfectly preserved, but utterly empty. "We found breakfast still on tables," she reported, her artificial voice crackling through the communicator. "Children's toys scattered in parks, clothing hanging on lines to dry. But no people. Not one human anywhere." The Council sent investigation teams to human worlds across the galaxy. Every report was the same. Homes left as if their owners had just stepped out for a moment. Vehicles parked neatly in their places. Gardens still being watered by automatic systems. But no humans. On the industrial world of Forge Prime, investigators found something even more puzzling. The massive factories that produced starship components were still running, but they were being operated entirely by automated systems. The human workers had vanished, but they had left their machines running perfectly. Zethkar joined one of the investigation teams heading to Earth itself. As their ship approached humanity's homeworld, everything looked normal. The orbital stations were in place, their lights blinking in regular patterns. Ships moved in orderly traffic lanes, guided by automated systems. But when they docked, they found the stations empty. Earth's surface was the same. The great city still hummed with activity, but it was all artificial. Trains ran on schedule with no passengers. Traffic lights changed colors for empty streets. In New York, the massive screens in Times Square still showed advertisements, but there was no one to see them. The investigation team split up to search different areas. Zethkar chose to examine the United Nations building, where humanity's government had once made decisions that affected the entire galaxy. The building was spotless, as if it had been cleaned just hours before. But in the main assembly hall, he found something that made his blood run cold. On every seat was a small device he didn't recognize. When he picked one up, it activated, projecting a 3-dimensional image of Ambassador Sarah Chen. She looked directly at him with her familiar warm smile. "If you are watching this," her recorded image said, "then you have discovered our departure. Please know that this decision was not made in anger or haste. We have been planning this for many years." The image paused as if Sarah was choosing her words carefully. "We came to the stars hoping to find partners among the species of the galaxy. We found many wonderful beings and we made many friends, but we also learned something that troubled us deeply." Zethkar called the other team members. They gathered around as Sarah's image continued. "We realized that the galaxy did not want partners. It wanted servants. Oh, not openly. Never openly. But in 1,000 small ways, we were told that our role was to fix problems, to mediate disputes, to maintain systems that others could not or would not maintain themselves. We became the invisible foundation that held galactic civilization together." The Keth representative, General Thakmor, clicked his mandibles angrily. "Lies. Humans were treated as equals." But Sarah's image wasn't finished. "We tried to teach others how to maintain the systems we built. We offered to share our knowledge freely. But it was always easier for the galaxy to let humans handle the difficult tasks. It was easier to let us be responsible while others enjoyed the benefits." Zethkar felt a cold weight settling in his stomach. He remembered the countless times human engineers had solved problems that other species couldn't. The way human diplomats always seemed to be the ones making peace between hostile groups. The way human scientists always found solutions when ancient technology failed. "So we have made a choice," Sarah continued. "We choose to leave. Not to punish, but to free both ourselves and you. We hope that without us you will learn to rely on each other instead of relying on us." The recording ended with Sarah's image giving a sad smile. "We wish you well, friends. Perhaps one day when the galaxy is ready for true partnership we will meet again." Silence filled the assembly hall. The investigation team looked at each other with growing understanding and fear. Zethkar was the first to speak. "We need to contact the council immediately," he said. "This isn't just about missing humans anymore." As they prepared to leave Earth, Zethkar looked back at the empty planet. Somewhere in the depths of space, an entire species had vanished without a trace. They had left behind a galaxy that suddenly seemed much larger and much lonelier than before. And deep in his mind, Zethkar began to worry about what would happen when the galaxy truly understood what it had lost. 3 weeks after humanity's disappearance, the first crack appeared in galactic civilization. It started small, as most disasters do. The Keth hegemony and the Rillian Empire had been arguing about mining rights in the outer spiral for decades. Usually, when tensions rose, Ambassador Sarah Chen or one of her staff would arrange a meeting. They would sit between the two angry delegations, offering compromise solutions that somehow made both sides feel they had won something important. But Sarah Chen was gone. Her entire diplomatic corps had vanished with the rest of humanity. General Thakmor of the Keth stood before the emergency council session, his black armor gleaming under the crystal chamber's lights. His mandibles clicked with barely controlled rage. "The Rillians have moved warships into disputed space," he announced. "They claim the territory now that their human protectors are gone." Ambassador Silara of the Rillian Empire rose from her seat, her scaled skin shifting from green to angry red. "We claim nothing that was not always ours. The humans made us agree to sharing agreements we never wanted. The humans prevented war," Zethkar interjected. "They found solutions that benefited everyone. Solutions that favored the weak," Thakmor spat. "Without human interference, the strong will take what they deserve." Council Speaker Mordeth tried to restore order, but his words lacked the gentle authority that human mediators had always possessed. Within hours, both the Keth and Rillian fleets were moving toward the disputed system. Similar problems erupted across the galaxy. Trade disputes that had been settled by human arbitrators suddenly flared back to life. The Synthesis Collective began expanding their territory, claiming that human negotiated boundaries were no longer valid. Old ethnic hatreds carefully managed by human peacekeepers began to surface on dozens of worlds. Zethkar watched the reports flood in with growing alarm. He had spent 40 years in galactic politics, and he was beginning to understand something that terrified him. The humans hadn't just been participants in galactic civilization. They had been its invisible foundation. The realization became impossible to ignore when the first major system failure occurred. Captain Velnara was traveling through the Kessler Junction, one of the galaxy's busiest trade crossroads, When every ship in the system suddenly lost navigation, the quantum beacons that guided faster than light travel simply went dark. Emergency protocols engaged, her ship's computer announced in its calm artificial voice. Navigation system failure. Cause unknown. Velnara contacted the junction's control center, but the response was chaos. Controller Jekwin, a nervous Vorthani technician, was barely coherent. The entire network is down, he said, his four eyes darting between multiple screens. Every beacon from here to the core worlds. We don't understand what's happening. Within days, the problem spread. The quantum communication network that connected distant star systems began experiencing failures. At first, it seemed random. A relay station here, a beacon there. But the pattern became clear when someone finally thought to check the maintenance records. Every failed system had been maintained by human technicians. The Granite folk, who prided themselves on their engineering skills, sent teams to repair the damaged equipment. But when they opened the relay stations, they found technology that made no sense to them. The quantum communicators weren't just human-built. They were human-designed on principles that other species had never learned. Elder Korth of the Granite folk stood before an emergency council session, his rock-like features showing unusual emotion. "We cannot fix what we do not understand," he admitted, his voice grinding like shifting stone. "The humans built these systems using methods that we never bothered to learn. We assumed they would always be there to maintain them." Worse news came from the Outer Rim. The defensive platforms that protected vulnerable colonies had gone silent. These massive installations had been humanity's gift to smaller species, protection against pirates and hostile forces. Now they were just empty metal shells floating in space. The Keth hegemony wasted no time in taking advantage. Their fleets moved against worlds that had been under human protection. The peaceful listeners of Harmony III watched in terror as Keth warships appeared in their skies. There was no one to call for help. The human fleet that had patrolled their sector was gone. Ambassador Zethkar tried to organize a coalition to protect the vulnerable worlds, but without human diplomacy to smooth the process, negotiations fell apart in days. The Synthesis Collective refused to work with the Granite folk. The Rillian Empire wouldn't cooperate with their Keth enemies. Every species seemed more interested in protecting their own territory than maintaining galactic peace. The worst discovery came from the Science Council on Nexus Prime itself. Dr. Yilnith, the Council's chief researcher, had been trying to understand why several star systems were showing unusual readings. Her investigation led to a terrible conclusion. "The stellar stabilizers are failing," she announced to the emergency assembly. "The precursor devices that keep 14 star systems stable are no longer functioning properly." The council chamber fell silent. Everyone knew about the precursors, the ancient race that had built massive technological works throughout the galaxy millions of years ago. Their devices were beyond the understanding of any current species, but they still functioned, maintaining stable orbits and preventing solar flares that could destroy entire worlds. How is this possible? Mordeth asked. Precursor technology is eternal. It has never failed. Dr. Yilneth's data screen showed a map of the galaxy with 14 systems highlighted in red. "The devices haven't failed," she said quietly. "They've been maintained. The humans have been secretly maintaining precursor technology for centuries." The implications hit the chamber like a physical blow. Billions of beings lived in those 14 systems. If the stellar stabilizers completely failed, entire worlds would become uninhabitable. "We must find the humans," General Thakmor demanded. "Force them to return and fix what they broke." "They didn't break anything," Zethkar said, his voice heavy with understanding. "They kept it working. And now that they're gone, we're seeing what the galaxy actually looks like without them." Over the following weeks, the scope of humanity's hidden role became clear. Supply lines that had functioned smoothly for centuries began breaking down without human logistics coordinators. Trade agreements that had seemed simple and fair revealed complex underlying structures that only human economists had understood. Even basic things like translation protocols and cultural exchange programs had been quietly managed by human specialists. The galaxy had become dependent on humanity in ways that no one had realized or acknowledged. They had been the invisible glue holding a fragile civilization together, and now they were gone. Captain Velnara sat in her ship, watching the latest reports of system failures and expanding conflicts. She thought about her last conversation with Captain Rebecca Torres of the human freighter Golden Dawn. Rebecca had seemed sad that day, talking about how much she would miss traveling the galaxy. At the time, Velnara had thought Rebecca was just being sentimental. Now she understood. Rebecca had been saying goodbye. Across the galaxy, the careful balance that had maintained peace for 8 centuries was crumbling. Without human mediation, old enemies were returning to war. Without human maintenance, critical systems were failing. Without human protection, the weak were being consumed by the strong. The galaxy was learning what it meant to stand on its own. And so far, it was not standing very well at all. 2 months after humanity's disappearance, the Galactic Council faced a truth that none of them wanted to accept. They were failing as a civilization, and they were failing badly. The meeting chamber on Nexus Prime, once a symbol of unity and cooperation, now felt like a funeral hall. Half the usual delegations were absent, dealing with crises in their home systems. Those who remained looked exhausted and desperate. Council Speaker Mordeth stood before a holographic display that showed the galaxy in red warning lights. Failed systems, conflict zones, and communication dead zones spread across the star map like a plague. "The Kessler Junction remains offline," he reported, his usually steady voice showing strain. "Trade through the entire outer spiral has effectively stopped. The Harmony systems are requesting immediate evacuation assistance, but we have no ships available to help them." Ambassador Zethkar studied the display with growing horror. The Harmony systems were home to 3 billion peaceful beings. The failing stellar stabilizers there would make their worlds uninhabitable within months. "What about the Granite folk?" he asked. "Their engineering teams have been working on the precursor devices for weeks." Elder Korth's rocky features showed defeat. "We have failed," he admitted. "The technology is beyond our understanding. We can replace broken parts, but we cannot comprehend the underlying principles. The humans understood something about precursor technology that they never shared with us. Perhaps because we never asked," Zethkar said quietly. The truth was becoming impossible to ignore. For centuries, the galaxy had allowed humanity to handle the difficult, invisible work of maintaining civilization. While other species focused on trade, warfare, and politics, humans had quietly kept the complex systems running that made all of it possible. Dr. Yilneth presented her latest findings to the increasingly desperate council. "We have discovered additional human involvement in galactic infrastructure," she announced. "The weather control systems on 47 worlds, the atmospheric processors on 63 colonies, and the gravity generators on all space stations were designed and maintained by human engineers." She activated another display showing interconnected networks spanning the galaxy. "We always assumed these systems were simple technology that anyone could operate. We were wrong. They are incredibly complex works of engineering that require constant adjustment and maintenance." "Why didn't the humans tell us?" demanded General Thakmor. "Why keep such knowledge secret?" Ambassador Silara of the Rillian Empire, her scales now a dull gray with exhaustion, answered for everyone. "Because we didn't want to know. Whenever humans tried to teach us these systems, we told them we were too busy with more important matters. We let them be responsible so we wouldn't have to be." The scope of humanity's hidden role continued to expand as more systems failed. The asteroid mining networks that supplied raw materials to half the galaxy had been coordinated by human logistics specialists. The complex orbital mechanics that kept space traffic moving safely had been calculated by human mathematicians. Even the breeding programs that maintained genetic diversity on isolated colonies had been monitored by human biologists. Captain Velnara brought perhaps the most disturbing news of all. Her ship had been investigating the abandoned human research station at Kepler's Edge when she made a shocking discovery. The humans were not just maintaining precursor technology, she reported to the council. They were studying it, learning from it, and improving it. "We found research logs going back 300 years. They understood how to build new precursor devices." The council chamber fell silent. The implication was staggering. Humanity had possessed technology that could stabilize stars, control gravity, and manipulate space-time itself. But they had hidden this knowledge from the rest of the galaxy. Why? Mordeth asked. Why not share such incredible capabilities? Velnara activated a holographic recording found in the research station. The image showed Dr. Elena Vasquez, one of humanity's leading scientists, speaking to her research team. Council Proposal 847 has been rejected again, Dr. Vasquez said in the recording. They refuse to allow other species access to our advanced research, claiming it could destabilize the galactic balance of power. But they're happy to let us use that same research to solve their problems for them. She paused, looking tired. We're becoming the galaxy's janitors. We fix what breaks, we solve what puzzles them, we maintain what they can't understand. But we're not allowed to be true partners in progress. The recording showed Dr. Vasquez turning to her team. Continue the research, but keep it classified. If the Council won't let us share knowledge openly, perhaps someday we'll find a better use for it. The Council members looked at each other with growing understanding and shame. They had created the very situation they now found themselves in. By refusing to learn from humanity, by keeping them in a subordinate role despite their capabilities, they had made themselves completely dependent on human knowledge and maintenance. But the worst was yet to come. The first stellar stabilizer completely failed in the Harmony 3 system. Without the precursor device maintaining stable solar output, the star began to fluctuate wildly. Solar flares erupted across the system, destroying the orbital habitats where 2 million beings lived. The evacuation was a disaster. Without human coordination, the rescue fleets from different species couldn't work together effectively. Ships collided in space, communication protocols failed, and panic spread among the refugees. Hundreds of thousands died needlessly. Elder Korth stood before the emergency council session with tears of liquid crystal running down his stone face. We have lost the Harmony 3 orbital cities, he reported. The planet itself will become uninhabitable within days. We are evacuating 3 billion beings with nowhere to take them. Similar disasters were cascading across the galaxy. The weather control system on New Verdania collapsed, turning a garden world into a frozen wasteland overnight. The gravity generators on Titan Station failed, killing everyone aboard when the artificial gravity suddenly reversed. The atmospheric processors on the mining world of Kappa Centauri stopped working, leaving 10 million workers trapped in an increasingly toxic environment. Each failure revealed another hidden aspect of humanity's role in maintaining galactic civilization. They had been the invisible foundation supporting everything, and their sudden absence had left the structure collapsing. Ambassador Zethkar made a painful admission to the Council. We must face the truth, he said. We are not capable of maintaining our civilization without human assistance. We have become children dependent on parents we never acknowledged. Then we must find them, General Thakmor declared. Send fleets to search beyond the galaxy. Force them to return and restore what they maintained. You still don't understand, Zethkar replied sadly. They didn't just leave. They escaped. We kept them in a cage of expectations and dependencies. Why would they return to that? Dr. Yilneth had been analyzing long-range sensor data from the galactic rim. Her findings added another layer to the mystery. We have detected massive energy signatures beyond the galactic edge, she reported. The readings suggest construction on an enormous scale, far exceeding anything we've seen before. The humans aren't just surviving wherever they went. They're building something. The Council stared at the sensor data showing energy patterns that dwarfed entire star systems. Humanity had taken their advanced knowledge and hidden capabilities to some destination beyond the galaxy's edge. There, freed from the restrictions and expectations of galactic politics, they were creating something unprecedented. Meanwhile, the galaxy they had left behind continued its steady collapse into chaos and primitive barbarism. As the emergency session ended, Zethkar looked around the half-empty chamber. Representatives who remained were already making plans to withdraw from galactic affairs, focusing on protecting their own species and territories. The great experiment in galactic civilization was ending, brought down not by war or disaster, but by the simple departure of the one species that had made it all possible. And somewhere beyond the stars, humanity was building a future that the galaxy might never be worthy to see. 4 months after humanity's disappearance, the Galactic Council authorized the largest search operation in recorded history. Desperate to find the humans and convince them to return, they assembled fleets from every remaining member species. Captain Velnara commanded the search vessel Distant Hope, one of 50 ships sent to explore human space systematically. Her crew was a mixture of species, all volunteers who understood that finding humanity might be their civilization's only hope for survival. Their first stop was Kepler Colony, once home to 8 million humans. As their ship approached the planet, Everything looked normal from orbit. The cities still glowed with light. The orbital elevators still moved cargo between surface and space. But no one answered their communications. "Take us down to the main spaceport," Velnara ordered. The landing was eerie. Automated systems guided their ship to a docking bay with perfect efficiency. The lights came on as they approached. The air recyclers hummed to life and the gravity generators created a comfortable environment. But when the airlock opened, they stepped into a completely empty facility. Dr. Caintel, the expedition's lead researcher, scanned the area with his instruments. "Life support is fully functional," he reported. "All systems are operating perfectly, but there are no life signs anywhere." They split into teams to explore the city. What they found was unlike anything they had expected. The human settlement hadn't been abandoned in panic or haste. It had been evacuated with extraordinary care and planning. In residential areas, homes were clean and tidy. Personal belongings had been carefully packed and removed, but furniture and basic items remained. Gardens were still being tended by automated systems. Children's playgrounds stood ready for children who would never return. Lieutenant Morketh of the Granite Folk investigated the industrial sector. "The factories are still producing," he reported over the communication system. "Fully automated production lines manufacturing starship components, medical supplies, and other goods. But there's no one here to supervise or maintain them." It was the same everywhere they looked. Humanity had left behind a perfectly functioning civilization that required no human presence to continue operating. They had built systems so advanced and reliable that they could run themselves indefinitely. But the most puzzling discovery came from the city's central administration building. In what had been the mayor's office, they found a simple white envelope addressed, "To those who come looking." Inside was a handwritten letter from Mayor Elizabeth Chang, dated exactly 1 week before humanity's disappearance. "To our friends among the stars," the letter began. "If you are reading this, then our exodus has been successful. Please do not see this as abandonment, but as liberation. We have left this world and all our colonies in perfect order, for whoever might need them." The letter continued with careful instructions for maintaining the automated systems, locations of supply caches, and detailed manuals for understanding human technology. But it ended with words that sent chills through the search team. "We hope that our departure will teach the galaxy what we could never teach through words. True cooperation cannot exist when one partner is expected to serve while others are expected to be served. We go now to build something new, something better. Perhaps one day you will be ready to join us as equals." Similar letters were found on every human world they investigated. Each was personally written by local leaders, but all contained the same message. Humanity had planned their departure for years, possibly decades. They had prepared their colonies to function without them, not as a gift, but as a lesson. The search teams pushed deeper into human space, hoping to find some clue about where humanity had gone. What they discovered only deepened the mystery. On the industrial world of New Pittsburgh, they found massive manufacturing facilities that had been completely dismantled and removed. The buildings remained, but every piece of advanced equipment had been carefully taken apart and transported elsewhere. "They didn't just leave," observed Engineer Thelpax of the Synthesis Collective. "They moved their entire industrial capacity somewhere else. This level of organization would require decades of planning." Dr. Caintel made an even more disturbing discovery in the planet's research centers. "All the data cores have been wiped," he reported. "Not destroyed, but completely cleaned. They took all their research with them, along with any records of their advanced technology." The pattern was the same across human space. Every world showed signs of careful, methodical evacuation. Nothing had been destroyed or damaged, but everything of value had been removed. Humanity had conducted the largest relocation in galactic history, with the precision of a military operation. The search fleet's most important discovery came at Earth itself. Ambassador Zethkar personally led the team that investigated humanity's homeworld, hoping to find some clue that had been missed in earlier visits. They found Earth exactly as it had been left months earlier. The great cities hummed with automated activity but contained no human life. However, in the ruins of an ancient city called Geneva, they made a discovery that changed everything. Hidden beneath the old United Nations building was a vast underground complex that previous search teams had missed. The facility was clearly ancient by human standards, built centuries before humanity had joined the galactic community. "This is incredible," Dr. Caintel whispered as they explored the underground chambers. This facility is older than human spaceflight. They've been planning this for longer than we imagined. The complex contained what appeared to be a complete backup of human civilization. Archives of literature, music, art, and scientific knowledge filled vast storage chambers. But more importantly, they found planning documents that revealed the true scope of humanity's project. In a chamber marked Project Exodus, they discovered detailed plans for relocating entire populations beyond the galactic rim. The documents showed calculations for massive generation ships, portable industrial facilities, and self-sustaining colony systems. But the most shocking discovery was a series of reports analyzing every major galactic crisis of the past 3 centuries. Each report detailed how human intervention had prevented war, economic collapse, or technological failure. The reports also noted how other species had reacted to human assistance with resentment, suspicion, or demands for more help. Conclusion: the galactic community views humanity as a servitor species, read one report dated 50 years earlier. We are valued for our usefulness, not respected as equals. This relationship is unsustainable and ultimately harmful to both humanity and galactic civilization. Ambassador Zethkar read the reports with growing shame and understanding. The humans had been documenting their treatment by the galactic community for generations. They had seen the patterns that other species had been blind to. In the deepest chamber of the complex, they found humanity's final message to the galaxy. It was a holographic recording featuring representatives from every human world, all speaking in turn. Ambassador Sarah Chen appeared first, her familiar warm smile replaced by sad determination. By the time you see this message, humanity will have departed this galaxy forever. This decision was not made in anger, but in hope. The recording continued with human leaders from across the galaxy, each adding their voice to the explanation. They spoke of their love for the diverse species they had met among the stars. They expressed genuine sadness at leaving friends behind, but they also spoke of their frustration at being trapped in a role that prevented true equality. "We tried to be partners," said Dr. Marcus Webb, humanity's former chief scientist. "We offered to share our knowledge, our discoveries, our capabilities. But the galaxy wanted servants, not partners. You wanted us to solve your problems without questioning your methods or challenging your assumptions." Captain Torres of the merchant fleet spoke next. "We became the invisible foundation of your civilization. We maintained your technology, mediated your conflicts, and solved your crises. But we were never allowed to participate as equals in deciding the future of that civilization." The recording concluded with all the human representatives speaking together. "We leave behind our technology and our worlds as gifts to those who might use them wisely. We go now to build a society based on true cooperation and mutual respect. When the galaxy is ready for such partnership, we will listen for your call." The hologram faded, leaving the search team in stunned silence. Ambassador Zethkar looked around the chamber at representatives from species across the galaxy. In their faces, he saw the same realization that was growing in his own mind. Humanity hadn't just left the galaxy. They had graduated from it, somewhere beyond the galactic rim, freed from the expectations and limitations imposed by galactic society. Humanity was building something that made their previous achievements look primitive, and the galaxy they had left behind was learning. Too late. The difference between dependence and partnership. 6 months after humanity's departure, the Galactic Council held its final session. The Great Crystal Chamber of Nexus Prime, once filled with representatives from 47 species, now contained only 12 delegations. The others had withdrawn from galactic affairs, focusing on their own survival as civilization collapsed around them. Council Speaker Mordeth stood before a holographic display that showed the galaxy in a patchwork of red warning zones and gray dead spaces. His silver eyes, once bright with the confidence of galactic leadership, now reflected only exhaustion and defeat. "The Kessler Junction remains offline," he reported to the sparse assembly. "Trade through the outer spiral has stopped completely. The Kethrillian conflict has expanded to involve 7 additional systems. The stellar stabilizer in the Harmony sector has failed completely, rendering 3 worlds uninhabitable." Ambassador Zethkar listened to the litany of disasters with a heavy heart. Each failure was another proof of how dependent they had become on humanity's hidden work. The galaxy was dying not from external attack or natural disaster, but from its own inability to maintain what had been built. "What is the status of the evacuation efforts?" asked Elder Korth of the Granite Folk. His rock-like features showed deep cracks that hadn't been there months before. Stress fractures from the impossible burden of trying to maintain systems his people couldn't understand. "Catastrophic," replied Captain Velnara. "Without human coordination, the refugee fleets can't work together. 3 ships were lost last week to navigation failures. The camps on neutral worlds are overcrowded and undersupplied. We estimate that 12 million beings have died as direct results of infrastructure failures." The numbers were staggering, but they told only part of the story. The hidden death toll came from the wars that had erupted without human mediation. Old enemies, their conflicts held in check for centuries by human diplomacy, had returned to violence with a savagery that shocked even seasoned military leaders. General Thakmor of the Keth spoke with unusual subdued tones. "Our fleets have taken 17 former human-protected worlds," he reported. "But we find that we cannot hold them. The systems that maintained these colonies are failing without human maintenance. We conquer ruins and inherit problems we cannot solve." It was the same story everywhere. The Synthesis Collective had expanded aggressively into human space, only to discover that their new territories were technological nightmares, requiring constant attention from specialists they didn't have. The Rillian Empire had claimed several human research stations, but couldn't operate the equipment they contained. Dr. Yilneth presented her latest analysis to the Dying Council. "We have confirmed the complete failure of 37 major systems across the galaxy," she announced. "Stellar stabilizers, communication networks, weather control systems, and orbital mechanics programs are all degrading faster than we can repair them." She activated a projection showing the galaxy 6 months into the future. Half the star map was colored black. "If current trends continue, 60% of current inhabited systems will become uninhabitable within a year. We are witnessing the collapse of galactic civilization." The bitter irony was not lost on anyone present. They had possessed the most advanced civilization in known history, spanning thousands of worlds and billions of intelligent beings. But it had all been built on a foundation they hadn't understood or appreciated until it was gone. Ambassador Solara of the Rillian Empire spoke for many when she said, "We thought we were the masters of the galaxy. We discover now that we were children playing with toys we didn't understand, while adults did the real work of keeping us safe." The Council had tried everything they could think of to reverse the collapse. They had attempted to reverse engineer human technology, but the complexity was beyond their comprehension. They had sent diplomatic missions to the Galactic Rim, hoping to contact humanity, but received no response. They had even considered pooling their remaining resources to build new systems from scratch. But the cooperation required for such efforts had died with humanity's departure. Elder Korth made the Council's final major decision. "The Granite Folk are withdrawing from galactic affairs," he announced. "We will focus on maintaining our home systems for as long as possible. We recommend that all species do the same." One by one, the remaining delegations made similar announcements. The Synthesis Collective would retreat to their core worlds. The Rillian Empire would consolidate around their home system. The smaller species would seek protection from whatever major powers would accept them. The Galactic Council, which had governed thousands of worlds for 8 centuries, was dissolving. As the final session ended, Ambassador Zethkar remained in the empty chamber, staring at the holographic display of the dying galaxy. He thought about all the warnings they had ignored, all the opportunities they had wasted to learn from humanity instead of simply using their abilities. His meditation was interrupted by an urgent communication from Captain Velnara. "Ambassador, you need to see this immediately." Her voice crackled through the aging communication system. "Our long-range sensors have detected something at the Galactic Rim." Zethkar hurried to the sensor station, where Dr. Yilneth was analyzing the incoming data. "The energy signatures we detected months ago have increased dramatically," she reported. "Whatever humanity is building out there, it's operating on a scale that dwarfs anything we've seen before." The display showed energy readings that seemed impossible. Structures that spanned light years, power outputs that rivaled entire star systems, and organized activities involving billions of coordinated elements. "They're not just surviving," Dr. Yilneth whispered. "They're thriving, building something that makes our entire galactic civilization look primitive." But the most significant discovery came from the communication arrays. Despite months of silence, a message had finally been detected coming from beyond the galactic rim. It was transmitted on emergency frequencies that every species would monitor, ensuring it reached anyone still listening. The message was simple and brief, delivered in Ambassador Sarah Chen's familiar voice. To the beings of the Milky Way galaxy, we have monitored your situation with great sadness but without surprise. The collapse you are experiencing was inevitable given the foundations upon which your civilization was built. We do not return to gloat or to punish. We return this message as a final gift, the same gift we tried to give you for centuries: truth. You built a society based on hierarchy, where some served and others were served. You mistook dependence for cooperation and convenience for partnership. When we tried to share knowledge and responsibility equally, you preferred to keep us in the role of invisible servants. Now you face the consequences of that choice. A civilization built on dependence cannot survive without the foundation it depends upon. But this need not be the end. It can be a beginning. Learn to truly cooperate. Share knowledge freely. Take responsibility for maintaining what you build. Treat all beings as equals worthy of respect and partnership. When your civilization is built on foundations of mutual respect, rather than convenient dependence, when you seek partners rather than servants, we will know. We will be listening. Until then, we wish you wisdom in rebuilding what was lost, and hope for what might yet be found. The message ended with coordinates to a small research station humanity had left behind, containing basic manuals for maintaining essential systems. It was enough to help, but not enough to restore dependence. As word of the message spread through the dying galaxy, different species reacted in different ways. Some railed against humanity's abandonment. Others began the difficult work of learning cooperation instead of dominance. Ambassador Zethkar stood in his empty office on Nexus Prime, watching the lights of the great station flicker as power systems failed. Outside his window, the last evacuation ships were departing for home systems. He thought about humanity's final message and wondered if his people would learn the lessons it contained. The galaxy had 800 years to practice cooperation with humanity's help. Now they would learn to do it on their own, or they would perish as a civilization. In the depths of space beyond the galactic rim, humanity continued building their new society, one based on the principles they had tried to teach the galaxy for centuries, and in the galaxy they had left behind. The long, difficult lesson in true cooperation was finally beginning. Whether anyone would be left to learn it remained to be seen.